Hello and welcome to the Caged Canary podcast. I have a very special guest today who I first saw on the Penn and Teller Foolish show. I would like him to introduce himself because I have no idea how to pronounce his last name, but his name is Siegfried and he's amazing. Siegfried,
Oh, I like it, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Siegfried Tieber. It's a German name. However, I was born and raised in Ecuador, and nowadays I'm based in Los Angeles.
yes,
But
I
there's
remember
that.
that. In the Penn and Teller, I think you said your mother was also born in Colombia. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yes, sir.
Very good. And so, how is it living in LA as a magician, making the move to Ecuador? When did you move to LA? How has that been?
It's been wonderful. I've loved every second of it. I moved to Los Angeles 7 years ago. Originally, I intended to stay here only for a few months. I enrolled at an acting program for 2 months because, acting can collaborate to the performance of magic. So I thought that an introduction to acting would help me as a magician. I enrolled for a 2 month program. After 2 months, I discovered that, well, you can't really learn anything worth doing in 2 months. So I extended that to a 2 year program. I got an associate's degree in acting, and I decided, well, in for the penny, in for the pound, I'm here. I should try to stay. It's been 7 years.
Amazing. And did you have a history of acting before this, or this was new when you came to the States?
This was absolutely new. I had zero experience with acting, and my purpose behind getting involved in acting was always to use those tools in magic. I never intended to pursue acting on its own as a craft. I enjoyed every moment of it, but the goal was always magic.
So, which leads me to asking about your character. You have one of my favorite characters in Magic. I don't know if that's you, I don't know if that's your character, but one thing that I noticed doing this with you is where is your hair? What happened to your hair? It's gone.
Goodness, it's gone. I used to have crazy curly hair.
What
There
happened?
is
It's
a
gone.
story behind it. It is gone. Um, I've had that crazy curly hair for the last 15 years of my life, and it has become part of who I was as a human being and part of my on stage persona. I decided to
Is it
cut
is
it
it
up.
because of the pandemic? Did they run out of shampoo?
No. Oh my goodness, I should have thought of that. Absolutely no. Sadly, it has nothing to do with it. I cut my hair about 3 years ago as a symbolic gesture. It came to a point where I decided to drop everything I've been doing in magic, every piece in my performance repertoire. I dropped it, left behind me, and I thought if I had to start again today, knowing what I know now, how would I approach magic? And the hair was a symbolic gesture of a new beginning.
Amazing. Amazing. One of the funny things about me is I have a ton of different photos of me with hair, with a beard, no hair. And, we, as magicians, we have different publicity photos. And every single time I get hired for somebody, they say, "Can you send me some photos?" And it's months in advance. So I send them some photos of how I look at that time. Maybe I have, hair, whatever. I send them the photos. By the time we get to the event, for whatever reason, maybe I feel like, oh, I'm going to change my look, whatever. I cut my hair. I show up the opposite look of how I looked in all their posters. And they're like, what? How come you how come you don't look like the guy in the poster? And I laugh and I try to explain, but that is one of the funny things about magicians. Every single time we have a new look, we have to get new publicity. You know, Penn Jillette, when he lost all that weight, he had to get all new photos, everything, because he was unrecognizable. You could not recognize
Absolutely.
him.
Yeah. And Penn also wears his hair short nowadays, which is also, it also shows it's also a big change for him. Absolutely.
But when you're performing, do you still wear the suit and all that stuff, or is that gone as well?
No, the suit, I more often than not performing a three-piece suit, given that, well, the last 15 months have been virtual magic. I don't wear a jacket because I'm on my living room, but I'm
Yeah.
still wearing a tailored vest and suit pants.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's mainly the hair.
Awesome. So when you were, I know that you got rid of a lot of stuff. You got rid of the hair. You got rid of a lot of things that you stayed with you for your whole life in magic. What was it that made you decide to get rid of all that stuff and start anew?
It was mainly looking inward to my approach to magic. And still to this day there is, but at the point I felt there was a great divide between what my magic actually was and what I aspired it to be. I like, and I see from the work of you that I've seen from you, it seems to me like we try to follow similar paths in the sense that I'll speak for myself, and I'd love to hear how you feel about this. I no longer deeply enjoy magic for magic's sake. My hope is always to try to communicate a narrative or a meaning or an idea at the center of each magic piece. I enjoy watching magic for magic's sake. The magician coming on the stage and displaying all these wonderful things he or she can do. There's nothing wrong with that, and it can be delightful to watch impossible mysteries unfolding in front of your eyes. But that's not what I want for my work. Eugene Burger, for people who might not be familiar with him, a great philosopher of the art of magic, he would always talk about the dance of the props in the magician's hands, in the sense that a lot of the magic you see nowadays seems to be a demonstration of skills, the props dancing gracefully in the performer's hands, but it doesn't seem to go beyond that. For a number of years, I've tried to pursue that idea that I want my magic to dig a little deeper. However, I felt that there was a big divide between my philosophy and my actions. I wasn't really following what I preached. So I thought, I'll cut my hair and I'll let this symbolize a new beginning. And if I have to start again in magic, approach it anew from this perspective, how would I do it? I like to think that I've grown as a magician, dare I say, as an artist, based on that decision. Mari, but do you mind me asking, how do you feel about that? I would think that you feel somewhat similarly.
Honestly, I think now that I've been doing magic for many years, I feel like it's almost what people who have been married for a very long time feel, where you have a love and you have a relationship with the art, but it changes throughout time. It changes throughout time. It's not the same. You know, when you first get into magic, you're so excited to be learning all the secrets, practicing, doing, you know, the first few shows you do, blah, blah, blah. And then there comes different period where you're becoming more mature. You want to do stuff more in your own way. You want to separate yourself, but not even to separate yourself from the magic that other people are doing. You want to become yourself. You want to really discover who you are and become yourself. And I feel like for me, that has been a process. And also, in terms of enjoying magic, I've been through different phases where I did not enjoy magic the way that I used to. And it was a very sad thing when I realized where, you know, you don't, you're used to enjoying something and then all of a sudden you don't enjoy it for quite a while. And for me, one of the big things that I had to rediscover was how to rediscover that joy of magic. And now, since I've been at home for so long, I'm reading magic books that I haven't read in years. And I'm setting up my mirror, I'm practicing stuff that I'll maybe never perform. But I think when you become a professional, you kind of get stuck in a professional mindset where, oh, what am I going to perform in the show? You're looking for the right material and you're not doing it for fun anymore. You're doing it because it's work. Oh, I want to work on this new piece, get it ready for the show. Work on this script, work on, this joke. Whereas I do find that there's different elements depending on if you're doing it professionally or non-professionally. But even guys who I know don't do it professionally, they've also had stages in their life where they were not as passionate and they walked away. They left magic for a year, 2 years, 5 years, and they just lived their life. And then they came back to magic. And I just think life is long and we all go through a lot of things. And so I hope that magic is always a part of my life. I think it will be, but
Mhm.
we have different attitudes as we go on in life. And you get older,
Yeah.
things happen. So
Yeah, I heard a comedian say this, a comedian I respect and I admire. I heard him say this a few years ago, and it really resonated with me. He would say that he's been telling jokes about dogs and airplanes and poop for many years. So once you're done telling all those jokes, you can only keep digging inwardly. I think that applies to any and every creative endeavor. And I like your analogy of marriage very much. I'm not married. I've been in a relationship for 5 years now, not married, but that deeply resonates with me as well. It makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I'm not married either, but you see people who are married for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, and you understand that as somebody goes through life, they change, and also their relationship changes. And that's not a bad thing. It's just life, getting older and figuring things out. But I think we have to always constantly evolve, and I think it's a great thing to evolve in magic. When I was starting out, I did I think what most people do, which is just imitate the people that I like. Everybody tells you to be yourself, to be your own unique character, but you don't even know who you are as a person when you're a young person. That stuff really, you become who you are as you age, as you go through life, as you go through different experiences. And you're also, I feel, able to understand different characters and more and understand how to show different characters as you're performing. So yeah, I think it's a process of maturing. I will say definitely, if you looked at who I was 10 years ago to now, it's almost a completely different person. And I feel like every single magician should feel that way, where you're growing and your magic is growing with you. I think it's a very bizarre sign if an audience sees you now and they say, wow, this is, they see your magic show, and then they see you 20 years from now and they say, wow, he's exactly the same, nothing's changed. I think that would be,
Yes.
I think that would be very weird.
I hear you. That would trouble me. I can see some people being okay with that, but I'm on the same page. If they say that to me 20 years into the future, ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
so let's talk about more of the practical side of it, because we're now talking about character theory, growing as a person. In terms of magic, so you had an approach for magic as you were growing up. What were you doing? You were reading books, watching DVDs, maybe you had a teacher. What was it like for you learning magic before you decided to get rid of everything? How was that like?
Oh, goodness. Growing up in Ecuador, Ecuador is a small country. Nowadays, 17 million people, relatively small country. The magic community and the exposure you get to magic locally is very, very limited. In all of Latin America, like, well, pretty much anywhere in the world, we have a lot of influence from the United States, movies, literature, art, etc. So most of the magic, the little magic you'd see in Ecuador and South America, is heavily influenced by the United States. That said, I had the
Hold on, let me
yes,
just
yes,
pause
yes,
you.
yes.
Um, uh, do people in Ecuador, do the magicians speak English?
No, 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 no. Spanish,
Okay,
but
but from a lot of the people that I know who live in Latin America, they are influenced more by the Spanish. Why do you say in Ecuador they're influenced by the American? What do you mean by that? Just to clarify,
yes.
because I'm sure you have
In
influence from both, but
Absolutely, yes, it is. In general, heavily, not only magic, but culturally, we are heavily influenced by the US. Then again, movies, mainly movies, pop culture, literature. In magic, I think that still in Ecuador, our main influence in magic comes from the US. It's easier to access books and literature from Spain because of the language, of course, but importing magic books to Ecuador from Europe is very expensive. We are talking at 70, $80 per book, which, oh goodness, it's up there. Then again, I'm going on a tangent here, but Ecuador is still a third world country where the minimum wage, the monthly wage is, the minimum is about $500 a month.
so
With that money,
how many years of working does it take to buy a magic book?
a lot of many years of working indeed. And that's the way it is because, yeah, then again, can you imagine? Roughly, that would be like here in the US with the standard wage and the standard way of living, that would put magic books at maybe $400-500. Oh
Wow.
goodness. Now you really have to think about before getting a book, which also means that once you get one, you really treasure the thing because it's expensive and you have to go through a lot to get it. That said, US and European influences in magic. It's definitely, magic is big in Spain because of the language. It's more easily accessible. I went to a primary school and high school where I learned English, but that was classroom English. I learned English mainly from video games, movies, and later magic books. And it's not unusual. Magician friends, I know more than a few magicians back home in Ecuador who don't really speak English, but they can navigate, find their way through a magic book in English because they read dictionary in hand.
Wow.
Yeah,
What
but
what video games did you learn English from? I'm just curious.
Oh, goodness. Mario, all of the Mario video games, not much language there, of course. I'm talking about the original Mario in the NES console. Some exposure to English. However, after that, Resident Evil, Zelda, GoldenEye, those were video games with Mario had a beautiful, well-developed narrative, but you are mainly action and visually oriented. Whereas Resident Evil, The Legend of Zelda, you need to make connections on a higher cognitive level where you need to decipher clues and etc. So that was a big part. Movies as well. Nowadays, for example, in Spain, I understand that the vast majority of North American movies would be dubbed, would be translated to Spanish, to European Spanish, whereas in Ecuador, you'd see movies with captions, with subtitles. So you are, whether you want it or not, you have some exposure to English, and some of that filters through.
Did you get to see a lot of magic on TV growing up in Ecuador?
Not
Or the
really,
internet?
very
Or
little. On the internet, yes, but that must have been starting in the early 2000s,
yes.
I guess. We didn't get any of the David Copperfield, not even the early Blaine TV specials. The most prominent Copperfield specials, those were what, mid to late 80s. Blaine's first special was in 97, Street Magic. We did not get those on television. I must have stumbled upon those later thanks to the internet.
And is there a lot of Spanish magicians? Are there any Spanish language TV shows in Ecuador with magic, or is it all mostly from Spain and Argentina, places like that?
No, Ecuador, not at all. I can only imagine that in Argentina, they have some. However, Tamaris, he was a regular on Spanish television for what, 20 years, where close-up magic on television was a thing. We did not have that in Ecuador. We didn't even get the Spanish TV shows in Ecuador. No, and still to this day, Tamaris is a superstar in Spain. In Ecuador, no one outside the magic community would know who he is, sadly. In Colombia,
But
a
did they
little,
know, but did they know before, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
no, for whatever reason, those Spanish TV shows never made it to Ecuador.
Okay. And
Yeah,
what is the magic community like in Ecuador? Do you have clubs and conventions?
yes, but those are very, very limited. Um, at this point, as we speak, 2021, there must be, I don't think there are more than 100 full-time professional magicians in Ecuador. 100 sounds like a lot. However, out of those 100, 80, maybe 85 might be kids magicians. Nothing wrong with that. That can be beautiful and glorious performing for kids. But I think that also is indicative of the mindset many people are still stuck into, that, oh, magic is for kids. It's not very common in Ecuador to see close-up magic performed for an adult audience. There might be, with that in mind, there might be 10, maybe 15 people working, professional close-up or stand-up workers for adult audiences, which then again, it's very relatively very small. There's a few magic clubs, but there are 3, main magic clubs in the country. There must be a few other tiny small ones, but these three main magic clubs have 20, 30 members each, and there's overlap between the members of one and another. It's the magic scene and community is very small still in Ecuador.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. And so when what age were you when you decided I want to move to the US and you took that move? Did you originally move to LA or were you living in another part of the US first? How did that happen?
Yes, no, that was it was LA that, as mentioned, I intended to come here for 2 months to dip my toes into the acting world, and then I decided to stay here. I was 19 at the time. A few uh, going backwards a little. I enrolled at the University for Mechanical Engineering when I was 19 in Ecuador. At the same time, I got interested in magic. 5 years after that, I got my degree in mechanical engineering. I decided to do magic for a living. I think I said I moved here when I was 19. I moved here. I got interested in magic when I was 19. I got my degree and I decided to transition to magic full time when I was 24. And then 2 years after that, I moved to Los Angeles. That must have been when I was 26, 27, that I came here, then again, intending to stay for a few months. And it's been a few years now.
Amazing, amazing. And so at what point did you decide I'm going to get rid of everything that I know and start new, start fresh in magic and cut off your hair and do all that stuff? What was the lead up to that? And then what was the decision? And then what's happened since?
That was 3 years ago. I did a show. A few years ago, there was another major shift in my work and my involvement in magic. Most magicians, most of us who make a living, who pay the bills out of magic, we focus heavily on private and corporate performances because those tend to pay well. I used to do a lot of those, but those also impose certain creative restrictions because if you are hired to entertain at a banquet or hall or walking around table to table, that means you need to introduce yourself, do something quick and visual and amazing, then go to the next group, then go to the next group, which then again imposes certain creative limitations. A few years ago, I decided that I wanted to take some distance from that and I wanted to focus on theatrical performances, as in ticketed events either at a conventional theatrical space or at a non-conventional theatrical space. I've done performances in art galleries, basements, spaces we have taken over and adequated for performance. Anyway, this was about 5 years ago, and I did a project, a show that ran for 7 weeks here in Los Angeles, in downtown Los Angeles. We took over an art gallery and we rented the space for 7 weeks. We adapted it for magic. That was a close-up magic show, intimate audience, 24 people. Then we took that same project to New York and it ran in New York for 6 weeks. That was 2017 and then 2018. After that project, I did basically the same show with minor variations for 2 years. And I'm still very proud about the project. And that was also the time when I appeared on Penn and Teller for the first time. And then again, that performance is still to this day one of my proudest moments. However, after doing this same show for about 2 years, I decided I like what I've been doing. However, I like to take some distance from that. So that's when I cut my hair. Then again, this must have been 2019, and I developed a completely new show. The people who produced my show in Los Angeles and then New York, I pitched them the idea for a new show. Hey, I want to reevaluate my work, cut my hair, start from the ground up. Would you be interested in collaborating, producing another show? They said yes, which means I booked the show. I just had to figure out the show, what the show would be now. That put some pressure on me, and that forced me to look into different directions. I like to think that if you were to see the show pre-haircut and then the show post-haircut, for people who aren't very familiar with my work, I don't think they would see much of a difference because I'd like to think that what resonates in performance is my personality and my approach to magic. I hope that's what comes across. So for someone looking from the outside, there might not be much difference, but for me, there is, and I like that transition and that internal journey that I have taken. Then again, I'd like to think it's for the world, not for me to decide, but I'd like to think that now my work goes a little deeper as a result of that transition and that inward looking for answers.
And you were saying that one of the shifts was that you wanted the magic not just to be about magic, but you wanted to have some sort of a meaning behind everything. Can you talk more about that? How do you do that, and what is it what is the message that you're trying to get across to people in different pieces, or maybe it's stories, or I don't know. What is it?
Yes, absolutely. There are different ways to approach that. For me, I don't have one answer to that. Something that I keep going back to over and over and over. A few years ago, I stumbled upon an interview that Neil Gaiman is my favorite author in the whole world, author of fiction and fantasy. Back in the 80s, probably, he interviewed Lou Reed from the Velvet Underground, and something Lou Reed told him, Neil Gaiman, the interviewer then, was that Lou Reed had always approached rock and roll from a storyteller's perspective. In his mind, the lyric should be able to stand on its own before it gets married to the music. Some people just want the fun and the excitement of the rock and roll. But for those who are searching and looking a little deeper, he wants the lyrics to be able to have merit on their own. I think the same applies to magic. At least that's the way I'd like to approach my magic. I aspire that the script on paper is able to stand on its own before it's married to the magic trick. Even if I were to give you a transcript of the words that I say, hopefully you'd find something meaningful and interesting there, more than here I have one card and I will put it over here, and now I snap my fingers and now it's a different card. When that's married to the magic, that's wonderful, but on paper, it's a little dry.
It reminds me of Rene Levon. Rene Levon, I remember reading this interview where he said, you have to decide whether you want to be an artist or a magician. And he talked about the difference and the distinction of both of those. And I think you have to read the whole article and stuff, but I think it is true in terms of what it is you are producing to the audience and how they perceive you. You have to make that decision as to whether you want to be a magician or more than a magician. And I think it goes beyond what people think of a magician. I think the term magician has been denigrated in the culture. People don't see it as a very serious thing. Oh, it's a magician, you know. But regardless of that, I think there is still a separation between the idea of somebody being a magician and somebody being an artist. But I love that idea of being able to do the uh, do the presentation and for somebody to get something out of it, even without the magic. It's really beautiful. I mean, I don't think for me, I'm just talking about my own style. For me, I would not be able to do that for everything. Some things that I do are just magic, but I love the idea of that, of having that poetry, that lyricism, that meaning behind things. And when you were doing that new show, that new concept, what was the reaction from people who had seen your work before and maybe new people? What was the difference in between you performing your stuff with your, you know, your crazy hair and your character to shifting to a more meaningful approach to magic?
People noticed, and that makes me immensely happy.
What did they
That's
say?
that they, both people who were familiar with my work and people who weren't, given that this was a theatrical show, we have the luxury of reviewers coming to the show and giving an objective review, or, well, reviews are never objective, but at least taking a look at the work from a distance and trying to put an objective review in print. Something people commented on was that, oh, he explores this and this and these ideas throughout the performance. That the show we are talking about, post haircut, was called Red Thread. The name comes from the mythology, the Greek mythology of Ariadne, who weaved a magic thread, and she gave the thread to Theseus, who entered the labyrinth to slay the Minotaur. So the legend goes that Ariadne gave the thread to Theseus. He tied an end of it at the beginning of the maze of the labyrinth. Then he entered, slayed the Minotaur, and because of the thread, he was able to find his way out. So the thread is a metaphor for a guidance throughout a journey. And the show revolved around the idea of improbabilities. We, more often than not, at least I used to think, and I think many people think of magic in terms of impossibilities, cutting a person in half and the person being unharmed, levitating, transformation, translocations. All those are traditionally conceived to be impossible events. However, we magicians deal with improbabilities quite a lot. Classic of card magic, cutting to the aces. There's nothing impossible about it. It can be a wonderful demonstration of skill. The odds of cutting to an ace out of a randomly shuffled deck of cards is 4 in 52 or 1 in 13. Not impossible, but the odds are not in your favor. Now, if you cut to 2 aces, one after the other, the odds of that are about 1 in 200. Now, when you consider the odds of cutting to 4 aces, one after the other, now the improbability increases exponentially. So this show, Red Thread, was a theatrical exploration of improbable events. When does it start to feel impossible? When one improbability mounts on top of each other, all of those in the same space, in the same night, it starts to feel like something is out of the ordinary here. So the idea, that was the narrative throughout the show, and magic was an excuse to explore those ideas.
Amazing. And now you, like most magicians, have been stuck at home for quite some time during the pandemic. Nobody's been really going around and able to do shows. I know that you're doing a new show, and we'll talk about that. But how has it been all of a sudden having everything canceled and being home?
Oh, goodness. It was brutal, at least at the beginning. Oh, it was hard. And I think all of us, magicians and non magicians, all of us were panicking, thinking, how will life go on now? I I'd like to think that I ventured into virtual performances relatively early in the pandemic. I think I did my first paid performance late April, so only a few weeks after the world changed radically for all of us. And for the first few months, it was awfully uncomfortable. For me, the main shock was not able to hear the audience react, because in most video chat platforms, the most popular being Zoom, if more than 3 or 4 people are unmuted and laughing or talking or clapping at the same time, the software goes crazy. So you are forced to mute everyone. Some performers have explored ideas around it, but when I perform, I've defaulted to unmuted, everyone else is muted. So not being able to hear people react or give you verbal feedback, oh goodness, that was hard. And there was the voice in my head going, oh, they are hating it, this doesn't work. How did I dare to have this silly idea that magic would work over a video camera? It was a few months of, oh goodness, strong discomfort. But nowadays I'm very comfortable with it. Nowadays I look forward to these performances. It's got to the point where it's not easy, but at least it's not uncomfortable. There's nervousness and excitement, but I look forward to those. And I think that magic particularly adapts remarkably well to video chat or to virtual performances, mainly because it can be very interactive, so it feels like a live performance.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I found all the same things. I find, and it's something that I still struggle with, is that I have to put so much more energy than usual to keep people engaged. Usually, I have some spectators up, you're interacting, you're doing the magic. I find though, and it's so funny, when I was first doing virtual shows, you know how it is when you finish a trick and you get the reaction, right? So I would do this beautiful routine and I get to the end and I'm spreading the deck and you have the revelation and there's just nothing. It's just silence.
Silence.
And nobody's even clapping or anything. You just see in the little screen, people are like this.
Yep. Yep.
And I would just honestly, when this first happened, I would be so nervous and I would just continue, like, oh, okay, now, thank you, because you don't know what to do. And then I found like how funny it was. So I would just start laughing, like I just did this beautiful routine, nobody cares. And it's just like, how absurd is it? But then you learn how to get those reactions from people and you learn how to engage people. I find for me, now I often bring people up who are comfortable being up and I spotlight them. So we're both being spotlighted at the same time. And that way they can react to the magic. It gives people more reaction to react. I don't unmute everyone because, as you said, it can get crazy with the echo, but I like to have people have that permission to feel like, oh, here's one person who's reacting, enjoying. And I often prompt people like, if I'm doing interactive magic, I tell them, I have no idea if it worked for you. If it worked for you, hold up the cards. Let me see your cards. And I try to really get them because you have no idea sometimes. You'll tell somebody will have a deck of cards and you'll be giving them instructions and then you'll say, now spread your cards and you're going to see this amazing. And you just see this. They're looking down
Yep,
and you have
yep,
no idea what they're looking
yeah,
at. So I
yeah,
find that you have to, it's just a thing of learning and all of that stuff. It's just been a learning experience. And now you're at
yeah.
a point where you're doing a new show. What is your show called? Tell us about it and let's hear about it.
Hi, my name is Siegfried Tieber. I'm a magician, not a musician, a magician. Yes, magician. Exactly. I've spent the last 15 years performing for live audiences all around the world. I've also appeared on television and have even performed magic over the radio, which I know is a strange thing to say. Now, I want to invite you to join me on my latest project, Odds and Ends, an interactive online experience. This show explores sleight of hand magic and illusion in the virtual arena. For joining me, I appreciate it.
Not blink.
During the performance, every person, including you, yes, you, will become an active participant. Odds and Ends, an interactive online experience. I'm very excited about it.
Is it possible then that you fooled us?
Yes, indeed. The show is called Odds and Ends, which I know is a bit of a peculiar name for a show. And it's, however, I am painfully aware that it's a peculiar name for a show, but I like to think that it's a good fit. It's basically, hey everyone, this is what I've been doing with so much time in our hands. This is at one point of the show, I have a memory demonstration in which I would tell people, here in California, where I am, the lockdown order was announced in 2012, the lockdown order, 2020, the lockdown order was announced on March 19th. That day, all of us knew that, well, we'd be spending more time home than usual. Some people started baking bread. Some people started brewing their own beer. That day, I shuffled a deck of cards and attempted to memorize its order. And it's an exploration of memory in the context of all of us have been stuck home. This is what I've decided to do with my time. And in that piece with the memory demonstration, that is the explicit theme of the piece. However, I think that's the underlying theme of the whole performance. Welcome to my space. This is where I spend most of my time. Let me show you what's been on my mind for the last 16 months of my life at this point. And it's, then again, I like to think that it's a good fit to the subject because it's a somewhat eclectic performance in the sense that, as we talked about a moment ago, it's not magic in the sense of it's not straightforward impossibilities. There's some of that. There's a memory demonstration. The closing piece for the show, it's a demonstration of sleight of hand skill plus memory, which then again, there's nothing impossible about it, but still I think it's a good fit for a performance of magic where I hope, even if there isn't mystery as to how I do what I do, because I'm telling people it's sleight of hand, a lot of practice and memory. There's no mystery in that sense. I hope that it will still evoke astonishment and wonder in people from seeing the demonstration and what I've been doing with so much time in my hands.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited for people to see you do magic. So at the bottom of this, we'll put all the links so that people can find tickets to the show. And you're doing the next shows very close to this date. Tell us the dates of the show and the time and all that information.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning it. I'm doing the first show on Thursday, May 6th, and then we are doing shows every Thursday and Sunday for the whole month of May. I say we because I'm thinking, because there's a whole production team behind it. I'm the one on the stage, but yes, we are doing shows Thursdays and Sundays for the whole month of May. Information on my website will give you links.
Awesome. Excellent. And so before we end today, I like to put people I like to ask them a series of questions very quickly and get the response very quickly. So I'll ask you a few questions and you respond as quickly as you can. So,
oh goodness, scary.
NASA, you're wearing a NASA shirt. Did we really land on the moon?
Oh yes, we did. Of course
we did. We did.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just curious. Question number 2. For playing cards, do you prefer air cushion finish or a smooth ivory finish?
Oh no, air cushion all the way.
Why?
Because of the feel. At this point, it might be habit, but air cushion feels right in my hands.
For close-up magic, who is the greatest close-up magician of all time?
Juan Tamariz.
Juan Tamariz.
Why not? Because he's a genius and he's still alive. And I don't know if he's the greatest, but in my humble opinion, at least among the top 10 for many, many different reasons that you are very aware of.
And who is the best magician who's had a TV show? What's the best TV magic show you've seen?
David Blaine.
David Blaine. Which one? Young David Blaine or older David Blaine?
All of it. All of it. He's fantastic and he's excellent. In my mind, what is very peculiar about the very, very early Blaine is how he shifted magic on TV on its head. And I'm not the first to notice this, but I believe that the huge success he had was because he shifted the camera from him and his hands and all these wonderful, skillful things he can do to people. Instead of seeing him doing these astonishing things, we are seeing people react to the magic. On one end, commercially, that is genius because we human beings identify with other human beings, but on a deeper personal level, isn't that such a beautiful human kind thing to do? He's pulling focus away from here, the star of the show, and he's putting focus onto people reacting in astonishment to the magic. I think that's a wonderfully kind and gracious, beautiful thing to do.
Amazing. And I agree. And to be quite honest, I think I love all the TV shows, but I really like how most of the early shows just had regular people on as characters. To me, I remember a lot of those spectators more than I remember the celebrities. The celebrities are great to see the celebrities doing magic, but for me, I remember some of the regular spectators even more than, some of the biggest, most famous names, just because of how they were on TV.
Yeah. Remember in the very first special, he does the ambitious card. He has someone sign
Fruit
a card,
Loops.
and these Fruit Loops, of course. Yeah, Fruit Loops. It's been more than 20 years. More
Yeah.
than it
And
aired
I
in
remember the whole scene with
1997.
the guy's
Yeah,
hair and
yeah,
everybody with the tattoos and the piercings.
yeah.
I remember the whole scene. That's the genius of it.
Yeah, exactly. Even the name, Fruit Loops. Oh, fantastic.
No, but it is really incredible. To me, that is genius. It's so genius. And the older I get, the more I realize how good it is. So
Yeah,
that's all
yeah.
amazing to me. And the last question I have to ask you is, did you have fun?
Yes, oh, I did. Here, oh, yes,
Yes,
I
here.
had so much fun. Yeah, of course I did. I had a lot of fun, and I am always on a quest. I try to take every opportunity to learn a little bit more about myself, hopefully to grow and mature. So for me personally, this conversation has been very, very illuminating, very insightful. I sure hope everyone else has enjoyed it as well.
Yes, thank you so much. And before we leave, this is a podcast for magicians. So if there is anything you want to promote beyond your show, your website, your tickets for your show, if you have any products for magicians, you can let people know. I'm sure they would be interested in whatever it is you have. We'll put all the links down below, but just let us know where people can find you and how they can give you money.
Oh, give me all the money because I like money, not my main pursuit in life, but I do like money. Mari, my website, siegfriedtieber.com, and social media, I'm active mainly on Instagram and Facebook. I don't have a product specifically for magicians, but
You should have
I'm
sold your
always,
hair. You should have sold your hair.
that would have been a good one, or at least donated it to some charity to make wigs out of it. Sadly, I didn't think about it.
It's not too late. Your hair's still growing, so you have a few more years left. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I can't wait to see your show.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me here. This has been a lot of fun indeed.
Thank you so much, everybody. And we will catch you in the next episode. Have a great day.